I realised much later a very subtle way by keeping the thing away from me.
Is that right?
And just dangling it in front, you know, where he knew I couldn't reach it.
Keith Richards is a member of the Rolling Stones and an English guitarist, songwriter, vocalist, and record producer. Richards has produced some of the most popular rock tunes of all time. He's still one of rock music's most widely renowned and iconic characters, and he has impacted many young musicians. In addition to being a member of the Rolling Stones, he's toured with the New Barbarians. He's also served as the frontman for the Expensive Winos. Among his best-selling albums are Emotional Rescue, Exile on Main Street, and Goat's Head Soup. He also had cameos in films Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End and Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. He was placed 4th on the 100 Best Guitarists list by Rolling Stone magazine in 2011. Richards is one of the wealthiest artists in the United Kingdom with a net worth of $340 million. The Stones are recognized for their guitar interplay of rhythm and lead, weaving between him and the other guitarist in the band, Brian Jones, Mick Taylor, or Ronnie Wood. Richards performs both lead and rhythm guitar parts frequently in the same song. Richards occasionally plays all of the guitar parts in the studio, as seen by the songs Paint It Black, Ruby Tuesday, Sympathy for the Devil, and Gimme Shelter. He's also a performer, providing background vocals on numerous Rolling Stones songs as well as solo vocals on occasion, such as on the Rolling Stones' 1972 hit, Happy.
Sitting there in Grandpa's parlour with the guitar in my hand, and he said, how do you get that? And he said, see those chairs and that book?
If you enjoy these videos, please remember to hit the like button, as it does help us out a lot. And comment below who your favorite celebrity is that you'd love to see in an upcoming video. His full name is Keith Richards, but is also known as Keith. He was born on December 18, 1943 in Dartford, Kent, England, United Kingdom, making him 77 at the time of this production. He stands at 175 centimeters or 5 feet 9 inches tall. Keith Richards, the guitarist for the Rolling Stones, has more tales than the whole music business combined. Richards' survival is nothing short of a miracle, and he has had several near-death encounters throughout his reckless 1970s. Richards, on the other hand, might make it through after surviving that era, and his worst drug encounter sounds like a nightmare. It wasn't only Richards who was addicted to drugs. For a number of years, chasing the high became the Rolling Stones' major goal, resulting in the band's production not being as good as it could have been. There aren't many things you'll read about Keith Richards these days that will surprise you. After all, the guitarist has checked off most of his rocker bucket list. Remember, this is the same man who snorted his father's cremated ashes together with a little amount of cocaine, which isn't even his worst drug-related anecdote. In a 1995 interview with Rolling Stone, Mick Jagger attributed the band's previous creative slowdown in the 1970s to one thing: everyone was doing drugs, Keith Richards particularly. As a result, I believe it suffered a little as a result of it all. I'm feeling down in the dumps. I believe we were a little too enamored with our own celebrity and so forth. It had been a bit of a vacation period. We cared, but not as much as we had previously. I'm not really paying attention to the creative process. Richards has been charged with 5 drug offenses since the start of his career, but that hasn't stopped him from pursuing sobriety like so many of his peers who have swapped drugs for smoothies. Instead, boredom was the driving force behind his habit. Richards was asked about his well-known hedonistic inclinations in an interview with The Telegraph in 2018. Drugs are not intriguing these days, he remarked. They're incredibly regimented and uninteresting. And besides, I've completed them all, he boasted. In 1983, Keith Richards married Patty Hansen. Alexandra and Theodora are the couple's 2 children, and they are still married. Marlon, Tara, and Angela Richards are his children with his ex-girlfriend, Anita Pallenberg.
Enough to collect the money, I think. And,
that's what it always is.
He was a tightwad, bless you, Chuck. But, and his guitar was laid out in his case.
Doris, Maud, Lydia, and Herbert William Richards are his parents. His father was a manufacturing worker who was injured during the Normandy invasion during World War II. Ernie and Eliza Richards, Richards' paternal grandparents, were socialists and civic activists who he attributed with almost founding the Walthamstow Labour Party, and both served as mayors of the municipal borough of Walthamstow in Essex. with Eliza becoming mayor in 1941. His great-grandfather came from a Welsh family. Richard's passion for the guitar was cultivated by his maternal grandfather, Augustus Theodore Gus Dupree, who toured the United Kingdom with the jazz big band Gus Dupree and His Boys. Dupree, according to Richards, was the one who handed him his first guitar. Richard's grandfather teased him with a guitar that was on a shelf that he couldn't reach at the time. Finally, Dupree informed Richards that he could have the guitar if he could just get his hands on it. Richards then developed a variety of methods for getting to the guitar, including stacking books and pillows on a chair until he finally got his hands on it, after which his grandfather taught him the fundamentals of his first piece, Malagueya. Keith Richards attended Wentworth Primary School as a kid. He went on to Dartford Technical High Institution for Boys after graduating from this school. After missing school too often, he was dismissed from this institution in 1959. Keith Richards attended Sidcup Art College as a young adult. He did, however, drop out of high school to pursue music as a full-time job. Keith Richards started playing guitar with the band Little Boy Blue and the Blue Boys after dropping out of college. This band quickly changed their name to the Rolling Stones, as it is currently known. In 1964, the band signed with Decca Records. The Rolling Stones released their first album in the same year. This album reached #1 in the UK charts and was certified gold by the Recording Industry Association of America. Later that year, with London Records, the band released the album 12 by 5. Despite the fact that this album was not as well received as their debut, it received an RIAA rating. The Rolling Stones had a very fruitful period in the mid-1960s. The band produced 4 studio albums in 1965 alone. These albums were all hugely popular. The Rolling Stones continued to release albums every year for the duration of the 1960s. Each album was certified gold or platinum by the Recording Industry Association of America. Aftermath, Between the Buttons, Beggar's Banquet, and Let It Bleed were among their most popular albums. In the 1970s, the band only released half as many albums as they did in the 1960s. They also began releasing records on their own label, Rolling Stones Records, during this decade. Sticky Fingers, Exile on Main Street, Goat's Head Soup, It's Only Rock and Roll, Black and Blue, and Some Girls are among their studio albums from this decade. In the 1980s, the Rolling Stones issued even fewer albums. The band's record label produced all of the band's albums throughout the decade. Emotional Rescue, Tattoo You, Undercover, Dirty Work, and Steel Wheels are among their albums from this decade. Their albums were once again tremendously popular, still charting in the top 5 in nations all over the world and gaining RIAA Platinum certification. When the Rolling Stones went on sabbatical in 1988, Richards started his solo career. Talk Is Cheap was the title of his debut solo album. This album had a decent amount of success.
Let me give it an E chord. He walks in and goes, "Nobody touches my guitar." Boom! That's one of Chuck's biggest hits.
Keith Richards earned $159,908.68 per day at the peak of his career. Keith Richards has a net worth of $350 million. Keith Richards owns a house in Weston, Connecticut. Keith Richards owns the following cars: 1983 Ferrari 400i, 1965 Bentley Continental Flying Spur, 1972 Ferrari Dyno 246 GT.